claustrophobic, I guess was the word she used. And, recently she's been talking about, she doesn't know if she wants to be here anymore. And she just doesn't have hope that the relationship can be changed. And the real, I guess, final kicker was she told me that she doesn't even know if she wants to try to heal the relationship.
During divorce, many men see the end coming and ask some form of question like, how do I find myself and move forward now that my wife has given up on this marriage? And instead of getting an answer to that question, he's told to fight for her. And that pivot right there can either save a marriage or nearly kill a man. When a wife is emotionally checked out, there are two completely different paths in front of guys. One path is to fight harder, and the other path is to detach and rebuild. If you choose the wrong one at the wrong time, the psychological fallout can often be literally fatal. I followed that win her back approach 20 years ago, which I'll explain in this video. My church had told me to fight for it over and over and over again. So I did. And when it didn't work, it didn't just hurt, it broke me. So today, I'm going to break down a response by John Delony to a man whose wife has given up. I'll also go over the save your marriage advice and the sometimes deadly dangers of trying or tying your outcomes to someone else's doubt. And then I'll analyze the video's comments, because sometimes the most important question is not how to fix the marriage, it's how to get out of it alive.
It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life.
So let's start with just a few short clips from this call to set the stage. We start with James from Omaha asking how to find himself in the midst of an impending divorce. He wants to be prepared to survive it and to rebuild.
My wife and I are on the brink of a divorce. How do I navigate, these emotions and everything that's going on, and really try to find myself right now? Because, obviously my sense of self is kind of all over the place at the moment.
And here John is telling the caller, James, that he's wrong.
Back to your original question, like, how do you find yourself? We can talk through that real quick, but I don't think that's the thing right now.
This is John telling the caller to go all in on a wife that has already given up.
I don't know how to necessarily get to that point, you know what I mean?
You have to decide to so recklessly run into this fire and through the smoke. And you're not.
And this is the crux of today's conversation. The guy called in to a show to ask and find out how to find himself. And John told him to go get her.
Go get your wife. Go get your wife.
Okay, so James called asking a very specific question. If my wife is done trying, how do I find myself? That's an identity after loss question. It assumes the relationship is likely already over and shifts the focus toward self-reconstruction. But Delony does not answer the question directly. Instead, he reframes it through the entire video. Go watch it for yourself, I'll leave a link for it. He reframes this situation as potentially salvageable and redirects James, the caller, back toward an all-in behavior. In effect, he pivots from grief processing to performance escalation. Delony likely believes that James is prematurely surrendering. From an attachment perspective, he may see a man withdrawing defensively before truly showing up. So in Delony's model, he's not ignoring, at least he probably thinks that he's not ignoring the question so much as rejecting its premise. He's saying, you're not at the stage of rebuilding yourself yet because you have not fully thought this through and fought for it. But that still moves James away from his identity reformation and back into marriage-centered action. If the marriage is actually still alive and both partners are reachable, that framing could be activating in a healthy way. But if the wife is genuinely disengaged, or if James is already emotionally exhausted, then redirecting him back into a fixing mode can feel like being sent back into a burning building. In that scenario, it invalidates his experience and reinforces the idea that the marriage outcome is still his responsibility and his alone. The call began as a question about how to move forward after loss, and Delony shifted it into a final effort intervention. Whether that was helpful depends entirely on whether there was still something left to repair, and in radio format, he didn't have enough information to know anything like that with certainty. It's also important to recognize here that Delony is operating from a spiritual framework. He's an openly faith-oriented gentleman, and within that worldview, marriage is not simply a contract, it's a covenant. And from that perspective, men are told to fight for the marriage, to fight for the wife and the woman. And they're taught to assume that restoration is possible until proven otherwise. Listen, if religion and its rules for marriage are your thing, then there's nothing wrong inherently with that value system. So let me explain this in real life and why calling into a radio show and talking with people like John Delony is so dangerous. When guys call into a show like this, they're getting high conviction advice from spiritual men who will never feel the downstream consequences of their advice. People like John Delony will never sit in your empty house with you. They will not absorb the humiliation of unanswered and unrewarded effort that you're making. They won't manage any panic or devastation when trying harder doesn't work. Radio rewards clarity, decisiveness, and strong directives. It does not reward nuance, complete data, or even the possibility that the relationship may already be over. And if you adopt a go-all-in strategy, as John suggests, without confirming that there is still something mutual to repair, you're just placing your emotional stability in the hands of someone who has no stake in the outcome. What nearly broke me wasn't just the divorce. It was the shattering of my belief that effort guarantees outcome, as everybody had been telling me. That belief works in school, work, fitness, careers. It does not work when other human beings have agency in the outcomes. Guys, if you're in this phase right now, trying to decide whether to fight harder or to move on, my book, Confessions, walks through that spiral in real time over a 2.5-year period. And my leadership advising work is made for men who need structure and internal stability when everything feels like it's slipping away. It's not about chasing someone and getting them back. It's about rebuilding when they leave. You can grab a copy of Confessions in paperback or ebook on Amazon, or get a signed copy and learn more about advising at rowpress.com. Links are in the description. The shift that ultimately saves someone in that position is moving from I must try harder so she comes back to I will rebuild regardless of her choice. In Confessions, I wrote about how my church reinforced the Save Your Marriage framework rather than helping me to prepare for one-sided loss. I was told to fight for my marriage, to love more, to do 100 other things, even if she wasn't responding. I was encouraged to pursue counseling, initiate hard conversations, demonstrate humility, and repent even when she thought I should, and to stand up for the marriage. The implicit message was that faithfulness plus effort would give restoration. And that theology made sense to people with no consequence to the outcomes, but it quietly tied reconciliation to obedience and what she wanted. And reconciliation needs 2 people, regardless of effort from just one. I also wrote about implementing others' advice with intensity. I doubled down on prayer, discipline, and visible character change because I was told that that's how to win her back. When the church leadership advised me to keep pursuing month after month, to keep showing up, to keep loving even when the response was cold, I internalized that persistence as proof of virtue. What I needed at the time was for somebody to tell me to stop trying, because that's where the psychological danger deepened. The go get your wife approach was moralized. If restoration didn't happen, the question became whether I had truly tried hard enough. And that added layer of shame went way beyond heartbreak. It fused my emotional identity to an outcome that I could not control. Looking back, the turning point in my story was not relentless attempts at persuasion and performance. It was the gradual recognition that obedience does not override another person's decision to stay with you. A man's self-worth and integrity slowly detach from the goal of restoring the marriage and reattaching your own identity. And for me, that was the real shift. Not saving anything, but surviving her decision without others' advice. That shift from pursuit to sovereignty is the difference between desperation and survival. And what do the contents in John's video have to say? I had ChatGPT do a content analysis of about 120 comments in his video, and here's what I found out. About 50% of the comments likely come from female accounts, while 15% come from male accounts, and the remaining 35% can't be determined. Now, this isn't, of course, scientific, just a rough estimate based on commenters' channel names, determining whether they are men or women based on their channel names. And the overwhelming tone of the comments is strongly against James the caller and largely supportive of Delony's confrontation. Most commenters describe the husband, James, as exhausting, self-absorbed, overly intellectual, and avoidant. A dominant theme is that the wife has likely been trying for years and is now emotionally done. Many women in the comments identified personally with the wife's position, describing burnout, emotional labor, imbalance, carrying the relationship, and being tired of anxiety-driven passivity. The phrase, "when women are done, they're done," appears many times. It's repeated several times in various forms. A second major theme is frustration with what commenters call therapy speak without behavioral change. Many of the comments argue that talking, analyzing, or going to therapy is meaningless without observable action. Hell, some of them accused James the caller of using anxiety as an excuse, hiding behind buzzwords, or looping conversations without accountability. There's a recurring idea in the comments that he wants to be managed or mothered rather than partnered with. There's also a strong too little too late narrative. Some of them explicitly state that John was right to push him so hard, while others argue that it was clearly too late and he should just let her go, which is my contention. A minority of the comments do show empathy towards the caller, suggesting anxiety disorders, autism even, spectrum traits, or trauma, but these are significantly outnumbered by critical responses. And a noticeable subset of commenters even wish that the wife could call in and share her side, which would be fair. There's also skepticism about the completeness of the husband's account, and a broader critique of advice shows only one partner's version of events. Overall, the comment section reflects a strong identification with the wife's exhaustion, endorsement of action over analysis, and a cultural sentiment that men often wait until crisis to engage seriously in the relationship. And there we go, guys. Bad counselors giving bad advice to men and women agreeing with it. Even skeptical of a man moving forward after his wife has already checked out and mocking his mental capacity, his mental health even. When all he wanted was advice on how to move on after his wife has already checked out.